Hello and welcome to Eye on Oakland. I'm Chuck Moss, your host, and we have a guest, actually an old friend of mine and a regular on the show, Mike McCready, who is now the incoming Bloomfield Township Supervisor. Now, full disclosure, I actually worked for you. I was your employee. I answered phones in your office for a couple of days. So,
and when I was in the State House?
Yeah, when you were state representative.
Right. That's right, Chuck.
That's right. And the last time we talked, you were state representative, and I know you ran for Senate. So what have you been doing?
Well, when I was termed out of the House and I ran for the state Senate, was unsuccessful.
Yeah, well, you're not the only one to say that.
Yeah, and then I was fortunate enough to have Brooks Patterson appoint me to a position at the county as the Director of Economic Development Community Affairs. And I went in there and started learning about the economic development world, which I really enjoyed. It's a team activity. It's interesting because you work with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. That is kind of the leader in the clubhouse, so to speak. And at that time, the Detroit Regional Partnership was just getting started, which has just been doing a dynamic job for the region. And our economic development in Oakland County was in a place by itself. They were always so aggressive and did such a nice job. And we had about 80 people in that department that covered a couple of different areas. But between planning, there was also small business financing. But we had a team of people that went out there and really traveled the world, meeting businesses and encouraging them to look at Oakland County. Mm-hmm. And along with the state of Michigan. So let's say we are looking at company ABC over in Germany, which has always been a good area for us to recruit into. If they ended up in our region, it was a win. It wasn't necessarily had to be a win in your backyard, but if it ended up in our area, it was a win, and we were all behind it and supported it. So it's a team activity. After I was at Oakland County, I moved over as an administrative change in Oakland County, I moved over to the city of Novi and did economic development, working with the exact same people I was working with at the county, doing the same. It's a team environment. And we were very successful in Novi, and Novi is a great hub for auto suppliers. I think a lot of it had to do with the location by the airport, the freeways. The tech parks they have over there.
You also had to redevelop the old Novi Ford plant.
Yeah, well, that was Wixom, actually.
That
was Wixom.
Oh, sorry.
And Wixom did a great job of putting in these big warehouses that are very modern looking and getting in some of the companies, if it would be like, you order online, they have big warehouses over there. So if you order something, let's say from Wayfair, for instance, ready to ship, you'll get it within a day or two because they've got a big warehouse there. It was the same thing with like Amazon moved over where the Silverdome was. That was a huge win for Pontiac and Oakland County to fill that huge piece of property with that Amazon warehouse. And so I really enjoyed it, learned the team aspect of it, and I want to bring that same type of outlook into Bloomfield Township. I think if we can do some recruiting, with these partners that we have, and to look at getting some businesses in here, it would be a win-win for our community, but also for Oakland County.
So you're basically an economic development guy. I mean, that's kind of what you are now. I mean,
Yep.
we all come from different areas, and who knew I'd ever be a budget guy? But and you, the economic development. Bloomfield Township, of course, is generally known for the residential element.
Absolutely.
But there's a lot of room for economic development. One thing Oakland County was famous for, because I served as commissioner as well, was one-stop shop.
Yep.
The one-stop shop.
Yep.
User-friendly, customer-friendly. Could maybe do some of those things?
We can. Oakland County used to run that. I don't think they're doing it anymore. They've kind of changed it a little bit. And then they had that Tech 248 that was great with those open houses. And it brought other businesses to a business to learn about what that business was doing. But we have a lot of industry leaders here in our community. And I think we need to get to know those people as well as the businesses in our community and find out where we can maybe put in some companies. I would love to see like an engineering headquarter of some sort in Bloomfield Township. I think we have the space for them in some of our buildings. That's what we did in Novi very successfully. We got into some nice engineering firms that would employ 100 to 200 engineers paying $150,000 to $180,000 with benefits. And that helps, I think, our community and our housing market, helps our other stores, our other businesses, because they're going to shop, they're going to buy your gas, they might buy your houses. It's a win-win. So I'll have my eye on that.
Well, everybody has obsessions. I have mine. Yeah. And one of mine is office. What are we going to do with all the office space if people aren't coming back to work? Now, I understand that
Right.
there's some companies that are now saying, no, this time you better come back to work. We really mean it. This time, we're not kidding this time.
Yeah.
We have a lot of office around here. How's that doing? And can
Well,
we repurpose?
They are repurposing, and I've talked to my old friends that were in the contract furniture business, and it's more open spaces now where people can come and go. They may not have a direct office to sit in. It's more of a shared office they have a cabinet for their own items, and we see remote work. I remember talking to new potential employees, and the first question, really, the younger they are, was, what's your remote work policy? And you just kind of giggle and laugh because you're like, really? Okay, but that's the environment right now, and I know more employers are asking their employees to come back more, but they're still allowing this remote policy. And it's been very competitive to hire people and to hang on to people, so you have to be somewhat flexible in that policy as well as in other areas. But the offices are repurposing more open spaces. People can kind of come and go, and I think they're also offering more amenities to their employees to incentivize them to come in. It might be free lunch, a coffee hour, a few more breaks during the day to make it more comfortable for them.
The famous Gen Z.
Yeah.
It's funny talking about the different generations, having baby boomers being described as somehow these disciplined characters. We were the lazy bums compared to the GIs. But so now you were a state representative. You were you did your full 3 terms during term limit days, and that's a lot of experience that you would take and bring back. What would you say were the lessons there, other than always wear your pin so that the sergeants know who you are?
Well, we had some really good leadership in our House and in the Senate and the governor's office, I always enjoyed working. Not only I liked working with the whole body. It was anytime we worked with the Democrats and the Republicans as a whole, I think we made better decisions. But I remember early on, we went through Detroit bankruptcy, and I was fortunate enough to be put on the bankruptcy committee, legislative committee, appointed by the Speaker, Jace Bolger at the time.
Yes.
So we got to learn a lot about the bankruptcy and the hardships that the people that this was affecting with their pension and health care benefits in Detroit. And a lot of those pensions were, $21,000 to $25,000, other than the executive pensions that were in risk that the state had to guarantee. But the problem was the health care, if I remember correctly. There was really no state law or municipal law about guaranteeing the health care, and that's where those employees really, I think, took a hit. I know Mayor Duggan, I understand, has come back and kind of, I think, backfilled that, which is wonderful, because these people worked hard their whole life to work and earn that benefit that they retired with. And so to learn about how a community like that has to what they have to go through bankruptcy, the hardships they face, but then rebuilding. But that also bled into all of our other communities, because we passed laws, I forget the year it was, about communities now, instead of paying as you go, had to have a certain balance in that OPEB or post-retirement benefit to help cover those costs.
Right, and the other post-employment benefits, or the OPEB, is generally health care.
Right.
Yeah. Well, because they found out that these things were just houses of cards. You may have you may have funded it. It not only wasn't fully funded, it wasn't even partially funded, and there was no way you could pay. You were hiring people today and making promises. There's no way you could pay.
Right. And that handcuffed a lot of communities, including Bloomfield Township, because they had to build up a balance. And they had to be at least, I think, 40% funded. And those were laws that we passed but were difficult on the municipalities because they had to make reductions or cuts to start putting that money away, and they did, and it saddled them. And then you have to add on the economic downturn we had in 2008, 2009, where we lost a lot of our revenue from property taxes because values went down. And today, many of the communities are finally getting back to where they need to be whole and start moving forward. And, you know, we saw employees over the years take cuts and reductions to help to get through these issues. So now it's changing of times, but we still have to be very cautious going forward because any of these downturns could happen at any time again.
Yes, indeed. Let's hope they don't happen anytime soon. Right. But yeah, well, you know, wringing inflation out. I remember the last time we had to do that back in the early '80s, yeah. And it was not pretty, as you remember. No. Now, so the basic lessons. So you come back from Lansing with collaborative, cooperative, which is, I think, serving you well and serving you well. Yeah. And you did work for Dave Coulter for a while, too, so you have some bipartisan experience as well.
I do. I worked with Dave and Hillary Chambers, who was his deputy chief, and she's a very bright, hardworking person, incredibly talented. And Dave, when he took over, really was kind of handed the county and had to kind of, you know, learn it from scratch. But he's been out there, you know, meeting the people and doing a lot of programs. And yeah, I enjoyed getting to know his team, and I still know him, and I think we're good friends, as well as the people at the Road Commission of Oakland County. And those are important groups that we need to be close to because they own our roads. And if we're going to get some things done, we need their assistance.
Well, we're going to get into that definitely in some detail. I think we have time to at least get started before we take our little break. But yes, I was astonished to find out the extent to which the township's roads are owned by the Road Commission.
Right.
I mean, you go into subdivisions. I would, you know, obviously doing door-to-door stuff, and these gorgeous subdivisions and houses, well kept up, and these roads are awful.
Awful.
And I would ask, what's going on? And they say, well, they're not our roads.
Yeah.
So how are you going to deal with just go talk to the Road Commission?
Well, I think we're going to have to talk to all levels. We're going to have to talk to our state representative and state senator to find out about some road funding. You know, when I was in Lansing, I had sponsored a lot of those bills to increase road funding for MDOT. And it's a formula that they use.
Yes.
And that formula, as it trickled down, doesn't necessarily trickle down to the township. So we have to take a look at that. I have to get to know the Road Commission to find out, and Oakland County, and talk to our, you know, Dave Woodward, who's the head of the county commission, about if we can get some funding from them and what that would look like. I'm looking forward to having these conversations.
Well, good. You like I said, you have a history of bipartisanship and collaboration, which once again I think will serve you well. As the Road Commission seems to be a little more responsive to the county commission than it has been in years past.
You think so? Yeah.
Well, okay. I think well, there are a lot of initiatives going on at the time.
Well, there's some good people there that've been there, and it's a tough job because there's a lot of roads, there's a lot of miles to cover, but you have to work with them, and we're gonna get what we're gonna get, you know, and I think patience and persistence are gonna be our mantra going forward.
Well, we're going to take a little break right here. I'm Chuck Moss. We're talking with Mike McCready, who is the newly elected Bloomfield Township Supervisor. And don't go away. I'll be right back here on Eye on Oakland. Welcome back to Eye on Oakland. I'm Chuck Moss, your host, and we're talking with Mike McCready, the newly elected Bloomfield Township Supervisor. And we're talking about roads. And one thing a lot of people don't know, particularly in the township, Bloomfield Township, I was called the township as well, we should, is that the township doesn't own the roads. In Birmingham, the roads are owned by the city. The city has to keep them up or repair them or maintain them. Not so in the township.
No, we're owned. Our roads are owned by the county, and so we have to work with the county on servicing our roads, and as well as somehow getting them road replacement. So we'll have to see how we can move forward with this. It's a big hurdle, and I knocked a lot of doors on my campaign. and I walk these roads, so I know them myself.
Ah,
And some of these most beautiful communities, their roads are in terrible shape. And even some of the roads I thought were in good shape, you get to a house, they say, our road is in terrible shape. I'm like, well, looks pretty good compared to some of the other ones
yeah,
I've
it's even
seen.
worse. Yeah, it's always really jarring in Bloomfield Township to be walking in your neighborhoods, because I think I've knocked my fair share of doors, no doubt, is that the houses are gorgeous, the lots are beautiful, the homeowners are taking care of everything, and the roads are a disaster.
Yeah, I had a state rep say to me, our roads are held together with potholes.
Yeah, that sounds like Michigan. Yeah, but no, you know that I actually was going door to door, and I almost sprained my ankle on a bad road.
Yeah.
I said, "Who am I?" And I, yeah, sure, come and sue us, be my guest. I thought, yeah, right. But so in Novi, when you were the economic director and all that, what lessons do you think you would pick up now to bring to Bloomfield Township?
Well, the relationships that I built up with the business leaders there and in Oakland County, but as well as with the MEDC, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, and the Detroit Regional Partnership. Dynamic firms out there meeting with companies around the world, and we need to kind of hang on to them and try and be a part of it, help them any way we can, and maybe something might come our way.
Now, you are a Bloomfield Township guy. I mean, like, there's no secret that I grew up in Midland, but you grew up right here.
Yeah.
So you are at home. You are actually, back home, back home again. So
nice.
that's got to be kind of fun to be
It is.
working where you grew up.
It is. I'm excited. I went to the Birmingham Public Schools and
What high school?
Seahome.
Seoul.
in
Wow.
Seahome, and I really learned. You grew up in the Birmingham, Bloomfield, Beverly Hills area. It's a very tight community, and we all have amenities we kind of share, whether it's the downtown or the parks, the sidewalks, or the homes and the schools, because we have great schools. Birmingham and Bloomfield are really good schools. Yeah, so it's nice. And coming from Novi has one of the top high schools in the state, and they have a really diverse community, very successful neighborhoods, businesses that
They
are
have a
being
big
built
Indian
up.
community, I understand.
They do. They have, I think, the largest in Oakland County.
Really?
Yeah, and they're very active in the community. It's great. So, really getting involved in the community, getting to know the neighbors, making myself accessible to them, to hear what their issues are, I think is going to be important, in this role. And I just think that it's quite an honor, and I'm very humbled, and I want to thank the residents for their support. I never, as a boy growing up, you don't think about where you might be in life, but I'm truly honored and humbled by this opportunity, and I'm going to work very hard for our community to try and get some things done.
Well, I know you mentioned in the, I believe, the Birmingham Bloomfield Eagle, which is now that's now the paper of record. Someone used to write for the news. It's kind of interesting to see the changes.
Right.
But enough about the journalism industry.
Right.
Is that when talk about reducing the cost of sewer and water, about that. Talk a little bit about. Can you expand on that?
Well, during the bankruptcy, I think they wanted to include that, but it couldn't. It was a separate organization. And so they had to go in, though, and they formed the Great Lakes Water Authority.
GLEWA, yeah.
They refer to it as GLEWA. And so GLEWA now is updating what should have taken place years ago. Well, it's very expensive because you have pumps and pipes, and that's where most of us get our fresh water from. And some of these communities have joined other organizations to buy water at wholesale levels and then use it during peak times to hold their costs down. And we're not part of any of those organizations. I know we've looked at them, but the buy-in is very expensive. So I think we have some work to do on these water and sewer rates. We have to study the rates around our area and find out what water and sewer are in our neighboring communities. And I think we're going to have to take a long-term approach on do we make an investment somewhere that allows us to buy water at wholesale levels and then use it when we need it. And if we can't do that, we have to look at other options, because water is getting so expensive. And now that, some communities, they separate, the water, fresh water, rainwater from sewer water. there's so much involved there, and and when I walk the neighborhoods, meeting with the neighbors, many have talked about the high cost of our water and sewer rates, that we need to get those under control somehow. So that is going to go under the microscope. In other communities, we're talking about the roads. Other communities, we're talking about police and fire, how that has to be a priority in our community. It was great, and I'll tell you, in this campaign season, Chuck, the weather was fabulous. So people were out in their yards, which made it easy to talk to the community because they were outside as I was walking around the neighborhoods. And as you went to different neighborhoods, there was always a little bit different theme. The big ones were the roads and the water, though. Those were the most, well, those were important, but police and fire protection, keeping it at the level here in the community, I think was always number one.
Well, I know that first responders has always been a priority. You have a dedicated millage for that.
Correct, yes, right.
And
But they have to be funded properly, and it's very competitive right now in the, with police and fire because they're getting recruited away in other communities. You know, in the past, they always had pensions, both the payment and the health care, and all that has been gone. I think the township had stopped that back in 2005. So those people now are filtering out of the system. But what happens is you have 401ks or 457s, and they're portable. So as soon as someone gets vested, they may now start looking at another community where they can get a few more dollars. It's a merry-go-round of employees. And somehow we're going to have to learn how to compete in that and learn how to keep our employees, but also recruit in that environment. And so I've got some ideas with that, and I think we're going to, we got to really focus in on that, because once you train an officer and you get them on board, you don't want to lose them, you know, and that we should never lose them to some of our neighboring communities.
you know, we can talk in Birmingham, but Birmingham they'll say, gee, well, we're just going to recruit guys out of the township. I say, yeah, well, now you're going to have a tug of war. You know, another aspect is we talk about regionalism, and you, of course, do have ties with the city of Bloomfield Hills. You were a city councilman.
Yeah, I was, and I enjoyed it. And, you know, it goes back a few years ago. I was thinking about that because I just talked to the new mayor, who I know quite well. I'm very happy to see Lauren Fisher is now the new mayor. I know Lauren very well. And
Sarah McClure now lives in Birmingham.
I heard that. Yeah.
I ran into her. I said, how are things in the, she said, no, Chuck, I'm one of your guys. It's like,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, well, Birmingham has just blossomed. It's incredible what's going on in Birmingham. And in the city, yeah, I was on the city commission for about 5.5 years. And then prior to that, I was on the zoning board for about 4.5 years. And then I was elected into the state rep. So I did get some good experience there, and it's a wonderful community, a little bit smaller than the township. I think there's about 3,800 residents, 1,600 homes, if I remember correctly. And they run public safety, which means the officers are cross-trained to do fire and police. We're here, it's separate.
So if you have priorities, I mean, you know, like number one, number two, what would you say that your top couple priorities would be? I mean, obviously everybody has a list of 10 or something, but.
Right. Well, I think right now is I have to look at the employees and get to know the employees, and they want to get to know me. I think there's a lot of questions of who I am and who they are, and so I'm going to meet with the directors soon, and then meet with the directors in their department and talk with the employees and try and get an idea of what it is they're looking for and how long they've been here. There was a comp study that was done that was released to the employees. And we have to go back and study that comp study and see where we stand as it's related to other communities. I think that's a priority. And then making sure that we're fully staffed on our police and fire. And then we have some contracts coming up that we'll have to negotiate on those contracts and to get taken care of. But our priority is always going to be taking care of the residents and making sure we service them correctly. And with the winter season coming on, we want to make sure our plows are out there clearing those roads, because that is something that they look for, and you know it happens so fast. You got to be ready to go. So I'll have my eye on that.
Snow plows and EMS.
Yes, right.
That's
and quick responses.
That's right. Now, one thing that you have is your senior center. I mean, I got to say,
it's beautiful.
It is. It's the gold standard,
Yep.
as opposed to, say, out in Rochester, the OPC, which is platinum. But that's other than that, Birmingham is trying to.
Yeah, they bought the Y.
They did, yes. Well, Birmingham, as a citizen of Birmingham, I can say they still have a little bit of work to do, and
Right.
they ought to be going out and talking to Chris Tavarro and you guys about how you do it. But yeah,
Well, Chris runs it. I've met with Christine, and I will look forward to working with her closer. But we're living in a community with an aging population, which to me, that means that senior center is going to become even more important to our community. And maybe we need to look to even expand it, but definitely we'll keep it up to date and make sure it's well run, that there's plenty of activities for people to participate in, and that as our community grows, that we can answer the needs of our community through that senior center.
All right, one hardball question,
Sure.
and it's something that's been on my mind for a long time. I have to ask: Are you ever going to go back to Open Office Friday?
When you say open office Friday,
Yeah, because no, the township offices were always closed on Friday. Have been closed on Friday since what, like COVID or something? Or
Well, I think
no, since
before that.
the Great Recession.
yeah, I think before that, I think that's something we can take a look at. Recruiting employees right now, because you're dealing with a remote workforce, offering 4 days a week helps. But if there's a need that we need to fill, and because we're not servicing the community properly, we'll look at that. A lot of our business now is done through e-commerce. It's done online, so we have to recognize that as well. But we have to be competitive with not just the public workforce, but with the private workforce. So we will be paying attention to trends in the market, and then we'll follow the trends.
Well, because I know that when I went to the Birmingham City Hall, they opened on Friday when I had to pay another ticket, parking tickets. What can I say?
Well, you can drop them in the box right behind City Hall there too. I've visited that many times.
Yes. Well,
Right.
we'll see who's got more. Well, finally, if just sum up, you're looking for your incoming, and what tone, what would you like to say, maybe 25 words or less as you're coming in?
I'm really looking forward to getting to know the employees and getting to know the community even more, and working with the residents. I can't tell you how many wonderful people I met in this community that really care about their community, and they want to help out. I was taken back by the amount of people that want to be involved in their community and help out, and that's a wonderful thing. And we're blessed with some great neighborhoods and great people here.
Well, Bloomfield Township has always sort of set the standard, so that's
Yes,
good.
it is.
Well, I would say welcome aboard, but you're the new captain, so that's great.
Well, thank you.
Yes, well, talking with Mike McCready, who is the newly elected Bloomfield Township Supervisor, and it's a big job, but once again, you have great experience, and glad to have you.
Thank you, Chuck.
All right, well, that's all for now. I'm Chuck Moss, Mike McCready. Thank you for joining us here on Eye on Oakland.